All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Trade Talks. Hope everyone's doing great in the huge world of the trades. We are back with another amazing podcast. This week, we're talking all about water management and what you can look forward to in technology and
Justin's like a kid in a candy store today. He loves water management.
Yeah, for those who know me well, I rolled out a water management department a couple of years ago, and it's been a big crusade of mine to share the wonderful world of water management. So it was a fun conversation. Maggie had to cut us off a little early because we were just going deep into the hole, but it was fun.
I felt like I was definitely on a call with two water management nerds, and probably not a sentence I would ever expect coming out of my mouth. But yeah, so today's guest is Danny Smith with Park West. He is the head of water management at Park West. Has a really cool story about how he's gotten to where he's at. And yeah, just a great conversation about, where he sees the industry now, all the things he's doing that are right, where we can take it in the future. Just really good stuff.
Yeah, he talks a lot about the certifications that are out there and how to elevate yourself if you're, in the landscape industry or wanting to get into the landscape industry, and really kind of preps us on how to get ahead as an employee first. And he then talks a little bit about if you're a business owner, especially a maintenance operator, how to bolt on a new service, which is water management, a very high margined and high and very much needed service, especially in the Southwest. So, he covers a lot of different things. He has over 90 irrigation technicians in his business, which is very impressive. And from what I understand, most of them have been homegrown in his company.
Yeah, some of our listeners probably don't even have 90 employees at their company. So just to think of that, 90 just dedicated to the irrigation department. Wow.
And he started the water management team at Park West about a decade ago. It's just him. He came in from working at another company down there in Southern California, started it up, and is growing an amazing department that services multiple areas, multiple states. So just packed full of a bunch of great information. And again, I love water management. I think it's a missed opportunity for a lot of landscapers out there. You want to add another, 7 figures in revenue at a 60% plus margin. You look at water management. It's kind of like those folks who have added spray to their lawn care business have seen great results. I think water management's an equal add. So yeah, what should we get into this?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's get out of the episode. And here's our conversation with Danny Smith.
Okay, folks, welcome back to another episode of Trade Talks. Here with Maggie, my co-host, and today's guest is Danny Smith with Park West. He's the director of water management. Danny, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you give us a little background of where you came from, how you got here today, and how you got into the water management sector of the industry?
Okay. So I've been in the industry now, 2 landscape companies over the course of about 13 years. I was actually hired by a small firm, landscape firm that had a contract with the city of Tustin down here in Southern California. And I met the account manager as I was renting him a chainsaw because I was the tool rental mechanic at a Home Depot. I was the mechanic while I was attending Irvine Valley College for Administration of Justice. And so I wanted to be a police officer, and I went to school for it after graduating high school. Really unfortunately found that I had to go through like the jail systems in order to, go into like Orange County Sheriffs or at a city, Irvine Police, for example. And I started to realize through the college courses that you don't really deal with very fun people. You're dealing with people that are not in the best part of their lives. You're dealing with people that are not just frankly good people. And I'd like to think I'm just too positive and too just, I guess, positive, but just I didn't want to deal with that every day. That's a drain. That was a big drain. And so I was still trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to complete the education. I'm already invested. I'm already halfway through it. But I was actually talking to a landscape account manager, renting him a chainsaw, and he said, hey, come work for us. We manage the city of Tustin, landscape contract for the city of Tustin. And I said, fine, you couple bucks more an hour, I can go, move out of my parents' house and go get an apartment with my hot girlfriend. Like, sold. I'm going to do that.
Hey,
Um,
props to that account manager too. Like, always be recruiting. It's something we talk about.
it was
So
a
that
good
worked
hustle.
out pretty good.
Honestly, I mean, the guy put me on this path. So, more kudos to him. And, so I actually became an irrigation helper. That was my title. And I basically, for 2 years, I dug holes. I had a guy, Jose Luis Flores. Shout out to him. He's a good dude. He basically said, dig here, dig that valve box up, see where the water's bubbling up from the soil, dig there. I'll come back in an hour when it's when you got that 3 foot hole going. I'm like, okay.
I can't imagine just muscles ripped in that stage of life, right? With that hot
He,
girlfriend.
he looked at my hands like after like the first week, and he goes, yeah, you gotta get some gloves on you. I mean, I had calluses, I had blisters.
Yep.
I was going. And so about 2 years of doing that, what was nice is that I didn't go to Cal Poly. I didn't get a horticulture degree, or I didn't get I didn't know irrigation design. I learned how irrigation systems fail. I learned, what does the spiral water coming out under the 1800 cap, what does that mean? That means that the O-ring is shot. So I learned how systems fail, and I got to repair systems. So main lines and proper solvent welding, and when to use a slip fix, when can I not have to use a slip fix, and order of operations on pipe fitting, proper excavation using a manta so I can throw the soil back into the hole without having to spend as much time backfilling. And loved irrigation. I built bike jumps, and so going from bike jumps to now, replacing valve boxes and stuff was pretty close. So what was interesting though is a position opened up to be the water manager for this contract. It required a water manager. And so for about a year and a half, I went through and I read 85 water meters every Monday in my Chevy S10. Had my screwdriver, had my clipboard, wrote the meter read on the paper. The next day, plugged all of those meter reads into a spreadsheet, and it basically said, you're 120% of the week for the allocation. So the budget, the usage, the allocation. And it basically told me, okay, I have, this week I have 10 meters or 10 irrigation systems. I need to go manually change to make sure I don't poorly perform the next week. So under usage, over usage.
That's and this is, what are we talking? 8 years ago, 5 years ago?
We're looking at over 10 ago. Now. 12 years ago.
So you guys were really, and this was at Park West?
No, this is with a small company called Spectrum Care. Yeah, they're not in business anymore.
Okay. Well, it sounds like they were a bit ahead of the game with the water management side of things. And so as water manager, your job was basically to manage the water being applied to the landscape on a monthly basis.
Right. And to be fair, I mean, it was, I'll give kudos more to the city because it was a city mandate. We had the landscape director that forced this procedure to happen. And held me accountable. I had to turn in the reports. I had to show that, if I was trending high, I had to show that the following week I was trending low. And what was interesting is I wasn't walking up to a CalSense or a Rainbird out near, even a WeatherTrack, for example. I was walking up to a Rainbird ISC, which is like old school, right? There was no ET, there was no soil moisture sensors. I mean, this was sitting on a Home Depot bucket upside down and plugging away at the keypad. And so I did that for about a year and a half, got really good at it. I saved the city thousands, like tens of thousands of dollars in water. Nice. And that's when I was recruited by Park West to do the same thing, really, but for their Orange County portfolio.
So where exactly was Park West in their journey of water management when you came aboard? Were they, just starting off, or were you kind of coming into a system that was already built?
I started it, to be fair. The entire industry for the commercial landscape sector. That's why Justin was frankly surprised, like, wow, Spectrum Care 12 years ago. Wow. We weren't doing anything. Nobody was doing anything. Even the big guys weren't doing anything. The cost of water wasn't there. The tiered rate structures were just starting to come online. And the contracts didn't dictate it. And if you're a maintenance contractor, you do what the contract says, frankly, just really no more, no less, right? So I came in as a water manager. I built the roles of the water manager, the irrigation specialist, and then as Park West scaled up, I was able to recruit typically within, which was nice. I promoted a lot of irrigation technicians to specialists to water managers, and now we have the hierarchy and essentially the department that we have today.
Nice. And as you kind of built up this department, if you will, how was it working with the account managers, with the maintenance team, who typically were probably used to turning controllers on in the spring and off in the fall, not much adjustment in between?
Right.
How did you guys work together during that process of creating this?
You're not wrong. There's a lot of pain points. I don't care if you're a 5-month, account manager or 25-year vet. They have their prerogatives. They have what they want to do. They have their methods of doing it, and really trying to show value to them of, hey, let's sell this smart controller to this HOA together. And, they have their commissions and whatnot to help justify their end. But it's just good business, it did take a while. And I think it's still, slowly coming online, is what really is the sales and marketing side of water management. And I think that's where you, Justin, you admit it, you said that, we're trying to really just bring all this to the surface much more than it is right now. So, the companies that have not just the dedicated water management, but have the people, the knowledgeable people, the companies, the leadership that want to really see this through and see it as the marketing and sales strategy that it is. Those are the ones that are going to come out on top.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Personally, I'm seeing this come up more and more in the industry. And I feel like, as companies are trying to build and scale and all these things, through organic growth, you're always trying to adapt more services. And obviously this is a fantastic vertical to latch onto. So I guess, what are the long-term goals for Park West when it comes to, or you specifically, when it comes to water management? Now I see you have, different services on your website. Water management hasn't made a big presence on your website yet. I know you're probably trying to change that, but how big do you see this animal growing?
Well, we'll talk about at the Park West level. So we still have scaling to do. We don't have and it's not that we can't say afford it. Overhead's obviously a big deal. We're trying to compete with companies that don't have this service, so they don't have the overhead to go with it. So there is smart growth that needs to come with it. The margins are healthy. That's the good thing. And then we have rebates on the back end to offset that. So there's a perfect marriage of doing it right. And so if we have, whether we call it our enhancement teams, which we all have enhancement teams for acacia removals, fuel modification projects, turf removal projects. But if we add a second layer of knowledge or skill set to these enhancement teams, that's digestible by the bean counters, by the big companies that need to be hitting their margins, and just certifying these people. So hey, you're an enhancement manager, you know how to run a bobcat across turf to remove it. Let's certify you as a CIT. Let's get you Quell certified. It's going to rain hopefully a lot this year, but it's going to rain in the next couple of months. Let's get these guys in some classrooms. Let's get these guys, into Hydro Point University or Rainbird's Brain Shark program, Hunter Industries Academy. Let's get these guys certifications. Let's show that they, obviously they have to prove it, they have to earn it. But getting these guys to really learn more side of the irrigation business, why they shouldn't put an MP rotator with a Rainbird MPR nozzle in the same valve, just stuff like that is really going to help us move forward.
Right over my head.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
but it's going to help us all move forward. So to answer that, there's a right way to do it, and I'd like to think I have that recipe, and we've scaled up accordingly. But I mean, I could see me doubling, tripling the department in the next few years.
Yeah, I love that, how you led with the investment in the employees, because ultimately at the end of the day, and Justin, we talked a little bit about earlier, but you spoke on getting these people to right sizing their salaries, and both of you coming from the California cost of living, all of those sorts of things. If you can provide opportunities for these people to have better lives, that's a really cool initiative.
Well, the best part of it, we all of our companies, private, public, whatever, we all have one objective at the end of the day, right? But on the other side of that is the cost of water, and the cost of water is getting incredibly high. Not only by unit rate, but then when you subject these water usages to tiered rate structures, it's a multiplier. You can get really ugly really fast. And for
And
our
Danny,
HOAs,
sorry to
yeah,
interrupt, but real quick, can you just give us a 2-second overview of what is tiered rate structure for those who may
sure.
not be aware of that? Because I don't think the whole, some people may or may not have that.
Yeah, and to start with that, so a tiered rate structure is essentially a water meter or a particular area of landscape is subjected to a monthly variable allocation or monthly variable budget. So based on the weather, and this is by enforced and enacted by the water district. So it could be an acre of landscape, and the water district says, okay, the month of July you get 100 CCFs. It's a little warmer in August, you get 110 CCFs. So the monthly budgets do change based on evapotranspiration, weather in the area. And what's interesting is that these tiered rate structures have survived scrutiny by like government watchdog groups. All of our water districts, particularly here in California, have to meet Proposition 218, which is basically saying that they're a nonprofit, that they cannot make a profit off of you. So what they can only charge you for water that it costs for them to deliver that water to you, plus their overhead. There's no net profit at the end of the year. But at the same time, how do you have a water budget or a water bill that could be $100 this month for 100 gallons, but then $150 the next month for 100 gallons? So there's plus and minuses there. But ultimately, the tiered rate structure is, let's say I have 100 CCFs, I'm allowed 100 CCFs. I pay, say, $1, and I'm just using easy numbers, but $1 for the first 100 CCFs. Anything over 100 CCFs, I could be paying $1.50 for. Over 300 CCFs, I could be paying $5 for. So it's quite an amplifier. For example, I think in the local area, Irvine Ranch Water District, let's call it $2 for tier 1, and that could be 0 to 40% of the allocation. So they actually have a low volume tier. 41% to 100% could be $3. 100 to 150% is $5. But if you're over 151% of the allocation, you could be paying $7, $10, $12 a CCF for that same water. So a mainline break, a stuck valve, those can really, really hurt a property's water bill.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of landscape maintenance companies out there in California, Arizona, the Southwest, who are subject to these tiers. But I don't know if they realize they don't see the water bill. The water bill goes to the property owner, and maybe there's a breakdown in communication, and they're not realizing, and maybe the owner's not realizing they're in this third tier getting absolutely hammered with accelerated rates. So I think that education you just gave is really important for us as an industry. When I was talking at the Vegas show a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned education. And I feel like if everyone knew what you and I know about water management, they would going out there and pushing water management. But I think it's a lack of education because things have changed so rapidly in the last 5 to 10 years.
To your point, you want to flip our industry upside down, and I might regret saying this later. Get the water bills, the actual water bills that show the performance, the budgets, what have you. Get those in front of the HOA board members, because to your point, they go to the AR of your property management firm, and the monthly fiscal budget that the property manager reviews at the board meeting. It says you spent 50 grand, you're supposed to be at 60 grand. Oh, okay, great. We're under budget. And as long as that dollar does not exceed what their operating budget was for that year, they don't see it, they don't care. And they don't realize that, yes, we were in tier 3, we were tier 3, tier 5. The landscape contractor could have done that much better of a job. And when you look at for HOAs, which are 95% of my business, what is the highest variable water, or what is the highest variable expense of the HOA? It's water. You got water, you got asphalt repair, you got some in condos, you have roofing repairs, but the highest variable expense for an HOA is the water.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah, I mean, my mind is blown because there's a lot of things here that I'm learning, and I managed HOAs for quite some time. So Do you have an average like ROI calculator on like what you determine, like investing in water management services, how much on average on a percentage basis you save that HOA or that large property in their water bill?
What's interesting is we have our standards. We can throw a dart and go, hey, you don't have a smart controller, put a smart controller in, we're going to save you 30%. But any contractor, even architects, consultants, whoever we are, if we're not asking for your water bills, 5 years of water bills, we're not doing you any favors. We have site factors like you wouldn't believe. We have not only rainfall, which obviously is different year over year, but effective rainfall. And I look at effective rainfall. If any of our storms come in at more than 1/3 of an inch per hour, we know we're exceeding our infiltration rates of our soils, and that's all being wasted. So we really need to look at, okay, great, we got 11 inches in the city of Orange. Well, how much of that was actually effective? How much of that was actually used by the landscape? And then evapotranspiration, which is basically how much moisture did our landscape need over a given period of time. What does that look like? And so when we look at, year over year, okay, the HOA spent 50 grand in 2020, 60 grand in 2021. We subject that against the effective rainfall, against the evapotranspiration totals. And that really, tells us the bigger story.
Yeah, you probably have, uneducated clients coming, you'd be like, well, we just fell victim to a hurricane in Southern California, and they're probably coming to you like, we got all this rain, it's doing we shouldn't need to water for weeks, and in actuality that's not the case.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that, I had to send out a notice to our teams, smart controllers or not, hey guys, on Saturday night or Saturday day, make sure your controllers are off until at least Tuesday. And the reason why we do that is simply optics. We just don't want the optics. We don't want people driving in, from Sunday dinner, it's light drizzle and the irrigation kicks on at 9 p.m. Or they're going to work early Monday morning, it's still a light drizzle, it's overcast, and the irrigation's running. We just don't want the optics. I don't care if it's a $10,000 smart controller or a $200 Home Depot special. I just want the irrigation off.
Yeah, because there'll be a complaint about it.
And they do.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about your team. I think you guys have a larger team than most. So talk to us a little bit about the size of your team, and then how do you communicate with your team when it comes to turning controllers off? I think that's something a lot of companies struggle with.
Yeah, we at the base level, we're over 90 men, irrigation technicians. We have 3 water managers, 4 irrigation specialists, and then we also have a director of irrigation training and development, Mr. Joe Villarreal. He came in as a water manager, irrigation specialist, water manager, and now is our director of training. And he hosts not only internal, but facilitates external training. So we bring in, Rainbird or whoever, he's the facilitator of that. And we obviously make it region specific, Orange County, San Diego, Inland Empire, just from logistics, windshield time, making sure our hourly guys are moving where we need them to move and get trained up on. But really just gets deciphered down from that. So I have 3 water managers that report to me. I have the irrigation specialist report to them, and then they oversee all of the irrigation technicians. So I meet with our guys, our water managers. It's almost daily. We're communicating near daily, and then they communicate to their teams, every couple of days, if you will.
Yeah. Now, a lot of landscape maintenance companies, as they start to look at adding on a water management service, the road forward is very cloudy and it's hard to figure out what that looks like. I know it was for us as we rolled out our department. How do your technicians communicate with, let's say, your maintenance production crews, your supervisors, and your account managers? And how do you guys kind of marry that service together on an HOA, especially a large HOA?
Our irrigation specialists, there's 2 different business models that we looked at. So the irrigation specialist either manages the irrigation technicians or they don't. And that's, we've seen that with the larger firms, since they don't really exist anymore. I'll mention the V word, Valley Crest. That's kind of their business model, where the account manager would essentially hand the work order or hand whatever needs to be done to the irrigation manager or the irrigation specialist, and that would decipher down into the irrigation technicians. I don't find that very empowering. It makes the account manager, I'm not going to use the word lazy, but it makes the account manager dependent on that person, that irrigation manager. So I make sure that the irrigation technicians work under the account manager for whatever portfolio, whatever quantity that's necessary. But the irrigation specialist is essentially a resource to all parties. So they're in the staff meetings once a week. They're at dispatch at 6 a.m. They're at closure at 2 p.m. And they're there, when the irrigation technician's in a hole and he doesn't know what to do, he calls the irrigation specialist. Hey, I just turned on this valve and it's not working correctly, or hey, I might have a pressure problem or a water quality issue, or how do I open up this basket strainer? They're calling that irrigation specialist to help them support, to work on that. And the beauty of that is by having all of these layers, for one, I get the fun stuff. So when it really can't be solved, it works its way up to the top, and then I got to deal with it. But the irrigation specialist, if they get stumped, if they need more support, they can reach out to the water manager. Water manager can't figure it out. I'm there the next day figuring it out. So
nice.
It's really for what it's worth. It's resource management. Just we have obviously great partnerships with manufacturers, distributors. We know when to call consultants and irrigation designers. Park West surprisingly doesn't really do a whole lot of design build at the high level. So we have a great network and team to help get whatever objective we want done.
Nice. That's awesome. Actually, that leads into a topic that, of course, me selfishly wanting to touch on, hard technologies coming from the technology space, both from the hardware and software perspective. Do you have any preferred technologies, preferred vendors that you work with to help just manage the actual physical of the field, but also behind the scenes?
It's interesting because when I look at, if you're asking me over the last 30 days, I have one answer. If you ask me over the last, say, 10 years, I have a different answer. And in the smart controller,
give us both.
In the smart controller space, it's heavy. There's guys that are doing things right, doing things wrong. No one's perfect right now. And so my job, and I enjoy this really as part of getting to go to conferences and doing all that fun stuff, is figuring out who's the good, better, and best, and who has been the best isn't the best anymore. Who's been the good has now turned into the better. There's a lot of movement on who's doing what, and the OGs, your Rainmaster, Rainbird, CalSense. They're trying to maintain the spots they've been in for years, but there's new flashy companies like HydroPoint, ET Water that have come in. Smart Rain is making a pretty good push. Stewart, CEO of Orbit Beehive, the stuff that he's trying to produce right now. He obviously started in the residential sector, but the stuff that he's producing over here on the commercial side, I mean, 5 years from now, who knows who's going to be really running the show in these capacities.
Yeah, a lot of, I think, money and smart people coming into this industry, seeing the opportunity that I see, which is water rates are going to only go up. Right. And as water rates go up, the ROI starts to make better sense. And what's your take on that? So this is a question that I really wanted to get to, because it's something that I think a lot of companies struggle with, is when you're going to provide a proposal for maintenance and water management services to a large HOA, and you're competing against someone who's quote unquote water management, but it's a technician that's going to turn the controller off and on once a year. What's your pitch? How do you, and you don't have to share, I don't want you to share your secret sauce necessarily, but how do you kind of educate the client on what water management is at Park West, what you guys provide that's maybe above and beyond, and also why you guys may end up being a little more expensive when it comes to looking at the numbers? How does that conversation go for you guys?
I start off with certifications, and I challenge all of our manufacturers to offer certifications of their product. And I know that can be dangerous for them. It's a liability for them, because if they say, yeah, this person, they went to a 2-hour event and I gave them Subway, that's not a certification. That's a lunch and learn, right? That's a different situation. But a lot of the manufacturers, they realize that there's a lot of operator error, and I've recognized that. I've had conversations with the big guys and going, yeah, that was us. We didn't have the right K value offset value, and for the flow sensor. So there's definitely operator error. So the manufacturers can create the best product in the world, but they're still at the mercy of the person operating it. And then on the back end of it, there's manufacturers that have, communication systems that aren't ready yet, or software glitches, algorithms not working. There's challenges on that end. And at the end of the day, we are managing live plant material. And so there's some finger pointing, there's liabilities there. But going to that point, I find out, okay, I'm trying to bid on this HOA. They have 50 weather track controllers. My sales packet will include all of the people that I have that are certified in Hydro University. I show them, hey, I'm actually one of the largest Hydro operators in the country. We truly are. So I use that as leverage, saying, if there's anybody to help you, work this through, it's us. And we ultimately for going out, if they go out to bid just generally, the sky is blue, so they want to go out to bid. We try to find, why, we do a site, inspection. Okay, the flow sensors are disconnected. Okay, the controllers are offline. And we just come in with a plan of attack on how we're going to fix all of that for them.
And you guys are doing those inspections at kind of a higher level during the bidding phase, so you can gather enough information to educate the client.
Especially with their approval, yes, yeah,
you're right.
Yeah, we have to get approval. I mean, you see Danny, sitting on a bucket in someone else's controller, and the liability goes through the roof. Right now, we're getting pictures and text messages and all sorts of fun, but there's a level of professionalism we have to maintain. We all, if you get to any landscape company, we can pivot, we can move, but we're always going to have skeletons. We're always not going to have an HOA on the programming side where we want them to be, or we have an irrigator who's disconnecting flow sensors or doing because he doesn't like the alerts that are coming in. There's always going to be challenges like that, and so we have to be humble. We have to not go after like the best jobs that we have, but we have to go, okay, this is our standard. This is what we can produce. These are the benefits and the values that we can provide consistently. And that's what I try to sell, is that consistency. I can have my best team on a job and dial in their systems, perfectly. But are we able to do that everywhere at all times? It's not as feasible. So be humble, be honest with your customer, tell them, here's where you're at, here's where I can take you.
Yeah. So in other words, don't oversell what
Right.
you can offer. I think there's a lot of that going on in our industry.
It's
And that's
insane.
it leaves the clients being frustrated and then not trusting any landscaper, right?
Right.
And, then we're fighting that. So you mentioned certifications and you kind of rattle off a few. I think for those listening who are interested in getting more involved with irrigation, whether they're a business owner or maybe they're just wanting to advance their career, from your experience, what are some of the top certifications as a manager or leader of your company that you want people to get for irrigation professionals?
Well, there's basically two sides of it. There's the manufacturer offered, and then there's the third party. So manufacturer offered, excuse me, that's going to be like, Rainbird's Brainshark. And I'm really big on adult learning systems. That's basically everything for as far as I'm concerned. So in the, call it quarter 4, quarter 1s, that's when we really build per role. This is what you need to complete in your role. So you need to go into Rainbird's, Brainshark program, and you need to complete these modules. So making sure that they're actually doing that. Hydro University is phenomenal. Hunter Industries, their system is phenomenal. And I'm sure there's others. But having that accountability, you don't get that certificate of completion, you don't get that cute little diploma unless you pass the quiz, unless you watch all the audio or all the video. There's no BSing it, is frankly what I'm getting at. So it shows that this person sat down, executed this module, passed this, took the quiz, so they're obviously not just going through it, and they're that much smarter on the back end of it. So that's, it's very much worth the time. We always try, in terms of like irrigation technicians, we always try to bill what we're paying them in terms of hourly. I challenged our company, this company, but I challenged a lot of companies is add in 2 hours a week or even 1 hour a week or log or, back that up into a certain time of year where you have so many hours of, call it billable, but not billable time. because the account managers are always trying to do, call it bill 40 on 40, which is fair. We pay the guy 40, he should be billing 40, but it's not really sustainable. And when does that person really have the ability to, or time to train if they're always being chased after for billable hours? So acknowledging that, hey, we're going to take a little bit of a margin drop, but we're going to have time for these guys to go and sit into that computer or sit in their truck with an iPad and get trained. It's what we need to do. Now the other side of that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Finish up the other side of the certs.
The other side is your third party. So, shout out to Tony Monzone, Bilingual Training Institute. She's a phenomenal woman. We've retained her several times. Many other contractors have. She'll come in and provide a detailed, well planned out irrigation training program that she facilitates. I don't know if Justin, if you've worked with her.
We haven't, but I have heard of her.
Yeah, awesome. Chad Sutton, Gachina, she's worked with them. Stay Green, Harvest. They've linked up with her. So there's that and then where I'm a huge fan of is the Irrigation Association. For me and my irrigation specialists and water managers, we jumped right into the CLIA and above. We're actually taking a step back and figuring out we have irrigation techs in different levels, level 1, 2, and 3. So our level 3 guys are eligible to take the CIT, Certified Irrigation Technician, in Spanish or English. We're going to be facilitating that very heavy over the next 6 months. And then CLIA, basically, if you pass the CIT, you're welcome to take the CLIA, all company paid for. And then there's like the QUEL, Qualified Water Efficient Landscaper. That's a phenomenal program. It's very friendly, and friendly meaning the time that the person has to take it, the cost, as well as the CEU requirements. The IA is I'm not say expensive, but it's up there. There's some costs involved with that. The exam cost, the book costs, the CEU requirements, 20 CEU hours every 2 years. That's pretty heavy. But the QUEL's a pretty awesome program. And then what we're also seeing very heavy is the recycled water site supervisor. So I think the Department of Environmental Health is going to get more stringent on requiring dedicated site supervisors on all of our recycled water sites. So Park West is gearing up pretty heavy to make sure that we have the volume of site supervisors in our service areas. And so like IRWD, City of San Diego, they have these programs, and what's awesome, it's a half a day, 5 hours, I think. It does have an exam at the end of it, but $70, and it's good for 5 years, and you can't beat that.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
That's healthy. It works for everybody. No CEUs on the back end, and it teaches our guys what to be looking out for. Like, hey guys, if you're at a park and you shut down the water meter because of a main line, and the mom walks up to the drinking fountain and says there's no water, there's a problem. Right? Like that's how you're able to look for cross connections. And, we found some fun stuff. I can't name drop locations, but, there's construction trailers that are making coffee with recycled water and all sorts of stuff that you'd be surprised that we've been able to locate because our guys are trained for it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's huge.
So, when speaking on the labor part of it too, I mean, labor is one of the biggest issues in the industry. So speak to a little bit of how you identify and retain talent in your company to put into this very niche role.
What we really has set us apart, and why we've been able to retain and not only that, but capture talent, is what my associate Joe Villarreal does, our director of irrigation training development. We sit down with each of our technicians one-on-one and have a very, very heavy irrigation technical conversation. 2 hours, 3 hours, it can go. And we basically find out where their head's at, level 1, level 2, level 3. And then we build a custom training program for them to get them to the next layer. So there are training events we set up that we just go, only level 3s go to this, or only level 1s. And it helps our instructors know who's in front of them so they can go heavier or softer based on who's in front of them. That's really helped out, so we're doing a 2-wire training, and we got Craig Borland, Mr. 2-wire himself. We bring the level 3 guys out there. We have the irrigation specialists out there, and he knows he can go much further down the rabbit hole.
Nice.
How do you find new talent then?
frankly, it's all word of mouth. I mean, we have a workforce development. They tend to go after the field labor, the foreman, but we also have career paths where we actually talk to our people. Hey, do you want, you're a foreman now. Do you want to be a spray tech? Do you want to be an irrigation tech? What do you want to do? What do you think you're good at? Oh, I like that guy over there. He's doing the irrigation, tech stuff, and he looks really muddy, but it looks like a lot of fun. Like, well, fuck it. You're gonna come over and you're gonna be an irrigation tech. And so just, hiring within is value. People see it, they recognize it, they appreciate
Yes.
it. And that's a big win for us.
Very important.
I mean, there's thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of landscape foremen that are trained and ready to go that you could hire. I don't think there's very many. I know there's not that many certified irrigation techs, because you can look it up on the IA website and see there's a very limited number of people who are plug and play irrigation. So it sounds like for you guys, most of the success has been training from within and maybe bringing people over who are a good cultural fit and then giving them the skill set needed to become irrigation technicians.
Right. I mean, we have just one report that we look at that triggers milestones. Like, this guy's been here for 5 years. He's of culture. He shows up. He's ready to go. What are we doing with him? He's been on the Mo crew for 5 years. Like, really? Like, let's look at something else. That's pretty neat.
So as we start to kind of hit the end of our show today, I definitely want to get the question over of, when, let's say we're talking to a landscape maintenance owner, right, who has 15 to 20 employees and they're growing and they're wanting to get to the 50, maybe even 100 employee mark. A lot of people look for that 10 million in revenue, and they're not doing any type of water management. Maybe they have one irrigation tech that just kind of runs around. What would you say to them when we talk about water management? What type of benefits could bring them if they were to actually focus on the water management department to really bolt onto their maintenance department? And should they be doing that?
Yeah, I think the easy bridge is if they have an enhancement manager. Everyone seems, if you're a route maintenance company, you should have an enhancement manager. So your route guys are, the route guys can do the color change outs. They can do the couple of, 3 gallons at the entry, 5 gallons at the entry. But if you're at that 15, 20 man, I'd imagine you have a 1, 2, 3 man enhancement crew that does some of the heavier applications. Go after them for training, sit them down, go through the Rainbird programs, the Hunter programs, give them essentially free. They have to pay their pay that day, but give them the free training, see how they respond to that, and then go after the cost stuff. The CIT training, for example, the reason why you're not seeing as many by the numbers is because our turnover in the industry is still rather high. It's really hard for us to justify getting this guy trained when he can dip out on us for $1, right? We all have the dollar jumpers. We all have the guys who, fortunately, in California, we're really not seasonal based. We're operating, 12 months out of the year. But for a lot of, guys on the East Coast, for example, or the Midwest, they don't have full seasons, so they don't, like, I'm not going to invest in this guy. He's not going to show up next year. He could be on an oil field, 6 months from now. So it's really hard for them to justify that. But for the small guys is start with the free training, start with the, hey, get this stuff done, see if this interests you, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think I'll add the price point that you can charge for an irrigation technician that is educated and does good work is a lot higher than you would think. We always thought we were capping out around the 80, 85 mark. I don't want to say specific numbers, but we're charging almost double that now for our, what would be considered our level 3 or our top level irrigation techs. And our clients are happy to pay it because they're quick, they know what they're doing, they're certified. And I think some folks don't realize the opportunity to charge more and pay more for these highly skilled employees.
The good news too is that the power managers that have been around, they've been burned. They've been burned by poor work, poor companies. So they are able to facilitate with our home, HOA board members. You get what you pay for, and I think we've seen that more now with heavier technologies, smart controllers, 2-wire installations. Most of our industry guys don't have a voltmeter, a multimeter. Now we're trying to hand them a clamp meter and going, hey, good luck to you, go figure it out. It was even tough for us at the size that we are to go, we need to go buy 20 clamp meters for our 20 level 3 guys, and we go, well, $400 each, like, oh my god, how are we going to do that? And so making sure that obviously, we have the tools that these guys need, but then how to utilize them and what they're used for is huge.
Yeah. Well, I've heard a lot of training certifications, and there's a lot of free stuff out there too. So yep. I think there's some good takeaways for folks thinking about more in water management.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like you two could talk about this all day because you live it so much, and very interesting stuff for me to hear. In the Midwest, not as big of a water issue, but still definitely something that's servicing more and more. So really appreciate it. And kind of as we wrap up today, one thing we like to do on the show for listeners is ask our guests to provide, a secret. We call it trading secrets. And Danny, do you have a secret that you'd like to let our guests know? You can't find it in a book, can't Google it, something in the head of Danny Smith that he would like to share.
Yep, absolutely. I had to name drop it one way or the other. So one thing that I'm trying to really we've just said certifications, but I want to track my career. I'm 34 years young. I got a long road ahead of me. I utilize the hashtag #HireCertified on all my LinkedIn content. Because I want to be able to look back over the years and see all the fun that we've had. So yeah, certifications are huge. What I suggest for guys, they're entry-level technicians, they might want to become an irrigation technician. Get yourself a 1/2-inch binder. Go on Rainbird, go on Hunter, print out those certifications, print out those certificate of completions, put them in a sleeve, put them in a binder. And when you're in your next interview for your company or with your company, with a company you may want to go work for or go interview with, here's your resume, here's the binder. And that binder, I had a gentleman, sit down. I think it was with Joe first. We have Joe interview for the most part. And this guy just handed a binder over, and we're just flipping through like 50 pages of certifications, just Rainbird, Hunter, Weathermatic, HydroPoint. We're just like, how much money you want? Like, I mean, it was a done deal, right? And so showing that they took the time, whether it was employer forced or not, we have no idea, but you can't beat that. And we have guys who come in and they want $22 and they're worth 15. We have guys who come in, they want 28 and they're worth 35. Our money is just so over the place right now. I mean, a good tech used to be 15 to $22. Now we're 22 to $32 per hour. But these certifications and the time it takes for them to get that and why they think it's important to them, it makes it easier for businesses to make these decisions on how much they're worth. So for the guys in the field who want to make more money, bring home more money to their family, get that 1/2-inch binder going.
So good.
It's a great tip. I love that.
Both from the audience that we're trying to attract here with the people coming up in the industry, and for the employers for what to look at when hiring smart. So great stuff. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap today's episode. Thank you, Danny, for joining us, dropping all the knowledge on water management, and we will include information on how, if people want to follow up with you, we can include that in the notes for the episode. But yeah, thank you so much, and continue doing awesome things for the industry.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Danny. Have a good rest of your day, man.
Thank you. See you.